Hi, I'm Jay Turner. If you do not know who I am a senior grader at PCGS. I have been working as a coin grader professionally for the last 20 years, and hopefully I know a little bit about counterfeit coins. So about a year ago, I was asked to take up the mantle of counterfeit detection seminars here at USMEX. Counterfeit coins have always been an issue with the Mexican coin community, coin collector community. As I will discuss, are the wide range of different types of counterfeits for Mexican numismatics, and anyone who thinks that they have a silver bullet that can, catch everything is going to be completely wrong. This is a very, very difficult series, and the counterfeiters try new technologies every single day to try and defraud collectors and investors of their money. So, but hopefully I can teach you a little something and show you what I look out for, and go from there. So, as I said before, there are many, many different types of counterfeit coins from Mexico. Some of the most notorious are contemporary counterfeits. We have a lot of people who collect cobs, and the value of the cob far exceeds the metal value now. So quite often you'll see jewelry-made cobs, which are modern counterfeits but made for jewelry. You also have counterfeits that are made for tourists. If you go to any tourist location around the world, you'll often see them selling coins, and many of these either being worthless or imitations. And then you have what we fear the most is counterfeits made to deceive collectors. And then finally, we have alterations. So we'll start with contemporary counterfeits. The Mexican coins for the Spanish Empire and for the Republic were the coinage of around the world. These coins circulated across the globe: Africa, Caribbean, North America, South America, Australia, China. And so you find contemporary counterfeits of these because quite often it was hard to get shipments of these coins in for everyday commerce, and because people could profit from making those contemporary counterfeits. One of the great resources that exist is a book, Monographs of the Silver Dollar by Riddle. And he documented what was circulating around New Orleans. And people today actually are trying to put together sets of these contemporary counterfeits because they've become a massive collector's item. And so if you can actually identify a piece in his book to his number, there's actually collectors for these, because you know that this is a contemporary counterfeit that was circulating in the New Orleans area at this time period. So here's an example of a contemporary counterfeit that would have probably been circulating in the New Orleans area. This isn't one that's exactly in the Riddle book, but you can actually see that with an XRF test, it's very easy to detect that this thing is not silver, not full silver. And you can also look at the weight, and this is a key demographic for identifying stuff, because a lot of the contemporary counterfeits do not fill the weight requirement of what an actual coin weighs. So this one was only 24.8 grams. Here's an example of a genuine piece. You can see there's a dramatic difference in the way the coin presents itself when you actually start looking at the details of the coin. And you can tell the weight is 27.07 grams of that coin. So that's the actual correct weight for a cap and ray real coin. If you start looking at genuine examples, and then you start looking at pieces that aren't genuine, quite frequently you could start seeing very different details, and that's something that will stick out to people for authenticity. So here's the example of the counterfeit. The genuine, you can see dramatic differences in the punches, dramatic differences in the design of the cap. Here's the reverse. So one of the keys I always tell people is, if you have questions about authenticity, look at examples that are genuine. Pieces that are certified by third-party grading services, pieces that are in legitimate auction houses, and then compare it to pieces that you have. If this coin stands out as something that's not correct, then you should have the first indication of something not being right. Again, the coins circulate around the world. Here is an old page from a book documenting what coins were circulating in China, and it's hand-drawn. And when you look at the details of these coins, it becomes really, really kind of funny if you study what real coins look like, but this was their interpretation of a portrait dollar, a bust dollar, a French coin, Bolivia coin, a Peru coin, silver Dutch Rider, coin from Annam. But that was, them drawing the coins, and that's their understanding of the designs at that point in time. So as I said before, this stuff circulated in China, and any collector, any dealer knows. You find this stuff heavily chop marked quite frequently because they're testing the silver and testing to see if it's, so by punching in, if it's copper underneath, they're not going to take that coin into commerce. Sometimes you'll actually find pieces like this where they've actually chiseled off the metal to see if there's actually silver, because there was someone who had a concern of the piece, and they took a big old gouge out of it to make sure that the center was actually silver, so they wouldn't be defrauded. And then you could see it continue to circulate with chop marks over the gouged area. What's interesting is, by that gouging, they actually took out a full gram of the weight. But this is actually a genuine example. Here's a not genuine contemporary counterfeit, where someone gouged out the center of the coin, and it's still chop marked over the piece. But if you actually look at the XRF test, there's no silver in this coin. And you can actually look at the weight, and it's 22 grams instead of 27 grams, so it's 5 grams light.
And that actually circulated after?
If you could get somebody to take it, it's now their problem. But for us, as collectors and people who study numismatics today, these are coins that are fantastic because it tells the history, it tells the story, and there is a collector value to them, but that collector value usually is not the same as a coin that is actually genuine.
What's the range in weight of a genuine coin?
So the reason why Mexican and South American Spanish Empire coins circulate around the world is the Spanish government was very consistent with the fineness and very consistent with the weight. So you knew that if you get a portrait dollar, that coin was going to be about 27 grams if it was unaltered, and it was going to be, the correct fineness. And that was why, counterfeits, if they can make a good counterfeit that passed, you can make a huge arbitrage by, defrauding people of the correct amount of silver, the correct amount of weight. Not just circulating in the Orient, but you also have contemporary counterfeits from Mexico. And so here is a 50 centavo that would have been a coin that mostly circulated in Mexico. And this is also a contemporary counterfeit, and it is 76% copper, 17% silver, 6% zinc, and it's incorrect weight as well. And most people would, if you just take it in commerce, not pay attention like you would if someone gave you a quarter today. Here's what the correct example would look like compared to the contemporary piece. And again, you have the correct weight and the correct silver fineness compared to the incorrect weight and the incorrect silver fineness. Here's the side-by-side comparison. And again, if you just look at what a real example looks like, and you don't have to have the necessarily correct date or the correct mint, but you can get a range, you can tell real quickly that this coin is absolutely not genuine. Here's the other side. Here's another example of a contemporary counterfeit. This one I actually bought last year here on the floor of USMEX. And it had a rejection tag from the grading service, not suitable for certification, which I thought was funny because it's actually counterfeit. And it's copper and zinc. There is no silver whatsoever on the piece. But again, it's a curiosity. And, as a collector, I paid $10 for this coin, much less than what the actual grading fee was. But, for real one, it would probably be, $15 or so. Here's a later contemporary counterfeit. This is probably, revolutionary counterfeit made for that time period. But again, it's not silver. And, you look at the details and they're crappy made. Here is a contemporary counterfeit of a gold half escudo. And what's interesting about this coin is actually would pass for most people. If you're not paying attention, you're buying some gold over the counter, or collection. This is something that would fool quite a bit of people if you're not actually paying attention to the details of the coin. This coin actually made it into a services holder, actually was sold in auction, and I accidentally bought it without paying attention, and then when I got it home, I looked at it, I'm like, oh no. But when you start comparing the coin to what a genuine example looks like, you can see there's these weird spikes coming off the book. The book doesn't have the lettering on there like it normally would. The finger is this weird elongated finger over the book. You can see that the date punches for the actual genuine example are very much different than the punches for the counterfeit example. But again, the gold series, some of these branch mints, they are kind of funky. So it becomes a very difficult thing if you're not paying attention. There are frequent contemporary counterfeits mixed in with real pieces that people don't even notice. Here's a reverse example of the counterfeit and the genuine. And actually, it's pretty good. If you're not paying attention, it will fool people. So, as I said before, there's a massive collector base now forming for contemporary counterfeits. There are books that people are writing for the different contemporary counterfeits, trying to document these pieces. Here's a piece that I picked out of a junk silver bin. It's actually not even silver. And it actually has a reference number. In 2014, when the book was published, the guy estimated about 7 known examples. And there's actually a Facebook group just dedicated to portrait 8 real contemporary counterfeits. And I posted this coin and got like 3 people asking me to buy it. So, even though it's contemporary, there are collector bases and there's people who are studying this stuff. But it is an area where you have to be careful because it is deceptive. And if you're, not looking closely at those coins, sometimes you can miss a contemporary counterfeit. So, the next version of counterfeit is casting. There are legitimate cast coins that are real from Mexico. But there's a lot of fakes of cast coins because it's an easy method of manufacturing. Where you take a host coin, you make a mold, you pour in metal into that mold, and then you end up with a cast counterfeit. And usually, this example doesn't exist as a genuine cast Mexican revolutionary or War of Independence type. But you can see all the pitting that's on this coin. You can look at the edge and see how it's not filled in correctly. You can see where the mold broke and there's a massive die crack going through. Those are all signs that the coin is not genuine and actually a cast example. Here's another cast example, same exact date, and you can see not the same die, and you can see the same kind of weakness where it didn't fill in. It's blurry, the surface is pitted. It's all indications of something that's been cast, not something that's actually struck.
Question.
Yes.
Can you always find the pour hole where they poured the thing into the...
No. Some cast pieces are actually really, really incredible. Like some stuff that they've done in China that is actually a cast counterfeit almost looks like a struck coin. Sometimes they'll file the edge off to try and hide that. There's some really deceptive pieces, but when you start doing magnification, you can actually see the casting marks in the piece. That should be an immediate indication. If that coin doesn't exist as a cast genuine piece, that's bad.
Okay.
So, as I said before, you have tourists, you have people trying to sell to tourists. And so, it doesn't matter where you are. I was in Tunisia earlier this year. People were walking up to me with clay, saying these are ancient coins. You go to a flea market and you'll find tourist copies because If you go on the internet, you can buy them for $1 a piece from China, and they'll ship you as many as you want. So here's a couple examples of a tourist fake. Here's a Clippy 1733, and anyone who has any familiar with any cob design knows that that thing is 100% bad. Here's another one which I thought was kind of cute. And again, these things are not made of silver. They're made for tourists who walk in and they say, "Oh my God, look, $1734. I'm gonna buy that for $20." Now, this one's a little bit more dangerous. It's false dies. Someone actually did a good job making the piece, but you could tell that the die wasn't the correct size because you actually have a rim, like a space between the rim and the edge of the coin. And if you start looking at details, like say the 6 of the date, they actually recut that 6 pretty dramatically compared to the rest of the coin. But it's still, a pretty lousy counterfeit for anyone who, studies these kinds of coins. But not lousy enough that people didn't submit it for grading. Here's another one. Again, the design is completely wrong. This is probably cast as well, because you can look at the surface and you can see like the pitting on the surface of the coin, and you can see it's dark from them not actually cleaning the casting off. And this is probably a pretty good tourist fake. This one was actually silver. This was something that was submitted for grading. But again, you look at the details, it's wrong. You could see that the die was ill-fit, so you actually see there's space between the rim and the edge of the coin. And you start looking at it, you see the lettering is incorrect, the pillars are incorrect, everything detail-wise is just incorrect for that coin. As I said before, here is a jewelry copy of a 2 Escudo cob. And someone was lucky enough that they stamped copy on that coin. But if I took this to a coin show in the United States and walked it around, I'd probably be getting offers as if that coin was real, without the copy on that coin. But these can be very, very dangerous. And if people do not abide by the anti-counterfeiting laws in the United States, these can fool a lot of people. So, another common counterfeit where you see is stuff that was made in the Middle East. And so this is an example of a Lebanese fake 50 peso from Mexico. And it's actually really, really good if you compare it with a genuine example. But the gold, a little bit off color. There's little details in the coin that once it's documented, like an IAPN or other organizations or by a grading service, it becomes, condemned as a counterfeit. And this example is one such piece. Which one's real? They're both fake. So, again, it's the minor details on these kind of counterfeits that are the areas that condemn those coins.
If you XRF those, the counterfeit is a different gold?
So usually the stuff that's made in the Middle East, it's done because they have a ton of bullion laying around. And most of the time when they XRF them, they are real gold, but they're shy of the fineness. So they're making a premium by making it into a coin, and they're also making a premium of arbitrage by making it a less fine gold. As I said, devil's in the details. So if you look at the O, there's a repeating depression on this coin. That shouldn't happen on a legitimate mint product. But the die had a defect there, and it repeats. If you look under the P, there's also a repeating mark that occurs on all these counterfeits. Again, genuine example wouldn't have that. You also on this coin have raised lumps and depressions. So you have a little depression there that repeats. Sometimes it's strong, sometimes it's weak. And you have lumps that are documented as this coin being counterfeit. And again, side by side, look at the 0. They both have the same mark. They have the same lump, same depression, same depression. But again, it's not just Middle Eastern coins that are faking bullion. You also have fake bullion pieces such as like Libertats. Which one do you think is real?
Now I don't think so. But
Okay, the top one is real, the bottom one is fake. This coin's a very interesting coin. When Libertat got released, it became very popular when it was first released, and the people who were selling them ran out, couldn't get more, so they made their own. And these surface from time to time. I actually wrote an article on these back when I worked at NGC, but I get one of these, maybe once every 6 months to a year working in grading services. Again, side by side, you start seeing major details that are off about these coins. Especially for modern mint product, you shouldn't have these massive inconsistencies on these coins. So take a look at the heads. Look at the foot. Look at the E of Mexico. I mean, you just see like it's completely different from what a genuine example would be. I mean, if you look at the reverses again, it stands out really quickly. You can see the eagle's heads are completely different. The snake, snake's pretty good, but wrong. But again, if you're buying big bullion deals and someone actually bought these in 1983, they may be just stuck in there and they are the correct silver, they're just not real. The cactus pads are also another indication. You can see in the counterfeit example, the raised lumps. On the not genuine example, they're in Qs. But again, the devil's in the details. Now, I'm sure a lot of people here to hear about Chinese counterfeits. And that's what everyone's afraid of. And there's lots of different Chinese counterfeits. There's stuff like this crap from Alibaba, where you can buy it in bulk for as cheap as you want. And you go to any flea market in the United States and you'll have bins of this stuff sometimes from some dealers thinking it's either something that's fake for $1 or $2 or something that's real for $50. But again, if you compare, contrast between genuine and real examples, you could see that these things are just terrible. And if you do XRFs, you can see there's absolutely no silver in those. And by weight, they don't even care. They just stamp out pot metal, no consistency. Even stuff that's cheap and not really desirable, they'll make any fake. If someone has a demand for it, they'll make it. I'll give an example. The Winston Churchill crowns from 1965 from Great Britain, at the time they were 25 cents. They were importing them to sell to the Chinese market. They said, well, we can make it cheaper than 25 cents, so we'll just make them. So it was cheaper for them to make counterfeits than to import the real coins. So, excuse me. Now, when it comes to the stuff that everyone fears for Chinese, it's transfer dye counterfeits. This picture is about 8 to 10 years old. This is one workhouse in China. This is what they have for dyes, for counterfeits. Now, this isn't all Mexican, this is mostly Chinese. But this gives an indication, because there's lots of counterfeit factories in Mexico and in China for coins, and they make everything from around the world. The Chinese are not afraid to spend money. These are real minting machines that they're using as a counterfeit workshop. Again, this picture, 8 to 10 years old, you could see they have the technology and they're willing to spend the money to make the stuff to defraud people. This is a booth that was set up in China. Everything is fake on that table. Here's a close-up of 8 reals that were for sale on that table. I doubt that if you see bulk like this, you would even question coins like this, because you can see that there's wonderful examples that are crusty and dirty and they look exactly how they're supposed to look. And then there's examples that are Jimby as if they just came out of a bag and they're all counterfeit.
Huh.
So, this is the problem with the Chinese counterfeits. How many people think this coin is real? Okay. How many people think this coin is real?
First with the last second.
Okay, here's the two odd verses, side by side. Again, devil's in the details, and this is something I look at every single day, hundreds of coins, and I have to study this stuff to make sure that when I'm doing my job and doing it properly and someone buys a coin and a piece of just ore, is getting a genuine example. So if you look, you have repeating marks. And here in the U, this is a Chinese transfer die counterfeit. The host coin that they used to make that coin had contact marks in those areas that they did not remove. When they make the die, those got transferred into the die, and every single piece that they make will have those marks on there, unless they notice it and go back and repair the die. And if you don't study these things, you're not going to notice it. And this is not a good example. Here's the reverses. And if you look in the crown, you can see as a repeating mark. And you can see that they aged one better than they aged the other one. But if you're not paying attention, and they will mix these in with real coins to get the extra money. You have to be careful. Okay, here's another one. Here's the first coin. Here's the second coin. Side by side. And you can see there's different looks to these coins. But again, you study these things and you look in detail, and you can see there's repeating adjustment marks that got transferred over from the real coin that they used to make the coin. And if you look right here, this got transferred over. It's on the die, and every single coin is going to have a impression there where that contact mark was for the fake die. Again, right here in the M. Right here, there's a scratch that transferred over. And so once we note these in our system, which is private, we don't share with the outside world, anytime that one of these comes in, we try and match it up. And those are the coins that we return as not genuine. Here's the reverse side by side. And again, you had a broken H on this coin that gets transferred. Then you have a repeating depression by the dot between the G and the dot. It's hard to see on this one, but it is there. And they will go back and they will repair this if it gets published. So if I write an article, and I have done this before, and I said, here is the transfer die counterfeit I caught. A couple months later, I'll get that counterfeit, and the pieces I did not circle are still there. And the pieces that I did circle and publish the article are gone. Like magic.
They learn.
They learn. They read everything, they study, and they try and prove it. Because the moment we point out and say, this is what you did wrong, they fix it. Now, here's one of my favorite pieces. This popped up on Instagram from a seller out of Hong Kong. And immediately, I had red flags about this coin. And it ended up being sent in for grading a couple months later. And we studied the coin. And there's repeating marks between both dies that struck that coin. Because that coin was a transfer die counterfeit. And they purposely made a mint error because that would have been something that would have been harder to detect. But both those dies that struck the coin, the same die, had repeating marks from the original coin. I said, like, if you're not studying this stuff very, very carefully, you can get really burned on that coin. And again, I don't even know what the real date of this coin is, because I have yet to get a one that was dated. And for certification, we'll be able to match that up. So I matched up the one, the error, but the date and the mid-mark and the sayers, all not there on purpose.
Question, please.
Yes.
Jay, so for a real overstrike or double strike, wouldn't the flaw in the die be transferred on both images?
That is true. The die will be the same die in most cases, and this is something that was purposely made for a double struck coin. But again, since it's a transfer die piece, any contact marks that were on the coin that was used to make the transfer die will be repeated as well.
It's on the coin. Not
On the
original
coin.
die.
And so it's on the die because it was on the coin that made that die. And then it transfers. And then you have very minute marks that actually matched up. And I just include that one piece as an example of stuff I see once a week or so. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted, does the Mint never do that on their HUD dies? I mean, how can you tell?
There are legitimate flaws that occur on dies that do get repeated on there. And that's what every die variety is. But you're not going to find contact marks that are depressed on the die because that will be a raised lump on the die. So that way it's impressed into the coin. And so when they transfer something and they use a coin as a host, the hit is incuse. So the die that they make from that coin has a raised piece that then, when it gets stamped, it becomes incuse again and thus repeated. And most of the time you do not have legitimate mint products repeating depressions. Sweden?
So if you don't have two examples of the same counterfeit to compare the transfer contact marks, what's your point of reference if you just have a coin in isolation?
Again, this is where experience really works, pays off. I've been doing this for 20 years. I do not know everything. Whenever someone says they know everything, that's a red flag. People are doing this every single day to try and get one over on myself, on the rating services, and the defraud every single person that might potentially buy that coin. So if I look at a coin and go, something's off, whether it be the luster, whether it be the rim, whether it be the edge, whatever the situation is that gives me the red flag, I will sit there and try and study it and try and figure out if this thing is real or fake. And sometimes I cannot tell. We return those coins as unverifiable. Sometimes weeks later we get a second example and like, okay, this is counterfeit. Therefore, going back, going forward, we'll call those coins counterfeit. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 years or longer before we get a second example. I'm like, okay, one we called, questionable in 2020, we now have a coin in 2023 that matches that coin. That coin is indeed counterfeit, and going forward, we have that documented in our system, and we will try to prevent certifying those coins. Yes?
So if you're inexperienced in contact marks, can you just tell by asking, hey, what's the weight of those? Because I'm assuming the weight is much.
So the question was about weight, and I'll give a little brief story that one of the Chinese people told me when I was in China. There was an American dealer flying over there looking to buy trade dollars. He was buying them from the counterfeiters. And he's sitting there with a scale, and he's weighing these counterfeit trade dollars. And then he's making a pile of the ones he's buying, and he's returning all the ones. The Chinese go, why aren't you buying these? And he goes, I need to weigh this weight. So if it weighs this weight, I can sell it in America. If it doesn't weigh this weight, I can't sell it. Next time he went to China, guess what? They all weighed the exact same, and that was the weight he needed. They learn. And so weight is going to be consistent. And if it's something like, say, a rare date or a rare coin, and this happens quite frequently in Chinese coins, they'll go out and they'll buy a cheap version, and they'll use that as a host, planchette, to make the new coin. And so I do see that too. So the weight and the metal can be completely correct, and the coin's still fake. But I'll answer more questions when I'm done if you want to hold off to then. All right, so the next big issue we see in Mexican coinage is alterations. And what an alteration is it could be an added altered date, altered mint mark, altered assayer, altered variety, anything where if you change an aspect of a genuine coin, it's now an alteration. And so an example of one of the most altered coins I see is a 1914 Caballito peso, because that is the key date. So, a little test. Which one's the real date?
Middle. Yes, thanks.
These are all altered dates. So someone has gone and changed a different digit to a 4, and then either sold it or tried to send it in to get it graded at a grading service, and they are all dates that have been altered. Which one's the altered date? The top one's the real one, the bottom two are fake altered dates. We see this quite frequently: 1914 Caballitos, 1949 pesos, certain Caparate reals, certain different dates, key dates. They will alter the date, they'll alter the mint mark, they'll alter the sayer, and they are quite good at it. Again, anything can be altered. Another area that I get quite frequently, and I get a lot of people complaining, is repairs. And what a repair is they have these coins, again, chop marked. And in the Asian market, most collectors and dealers absolutely hate chop marks. They don't want the coins chop marked. So they will go in there and they will remove the chop marks, add metal, smooth it in, buff it out. Here's a close-up of the area where there was chop marks and the whole thing has been resurfaced. And I see these quite frequently. They don't just come from China, they come from other countries as well. And we've had some really funny ones. We had one that had a Philippines counterstamp on there. They thought it was a chop mark. So you see the center portion, it's all smoothed out where the counter mark used to be. Now we have more expert repairs, and here's one that's been repaired and is since toned over. And since they use a different type of silver, where the repair is, under the V, above the crown, next to the H, has toned completely different because it's fresh added silver. And quite frequently, if you put these in like a PVC flip or PVC page, that area is green and the rest of the area is not. They have since gotten even better on these expert repairs because some of these Chinese coins bring such huge premiums that without chop marks, that if I didn't have that exact coin documented in a previous PCGS holder or a previous auction, I would have never been able to tell that coin was altered. Another frequent alteration, especially with modern, is stuff that's colorized and altered outside the mint. For the Libertad series, this is a very popular thing to do. They'll buy bulk bullion Libertads and they'll add stickers and colorization, these pieces, and sell them as premium products. And there's actually a collector base for this stuff. So some of them that are really pretty bring like $50. But it's stuff that I get in and I have to return it as not genuine, colorized outside the mint. They also do a lot of plating outside the mint too. And this is stuff that the mint never actually made as a product. But again, somebody turned it into a premium product and sold it as such. Again, this one's plated and colorized outside the mint. And they did a lot of work to sell this as a coin. So, but I get them quite frequently. So, in conclusion, my recommendation is this. If you get something and you're not sure about it, compare it to real examples. If something stands out as this not being equal to a real example that you see in third-party certificated holders, legitimate auctions like Stacks or Heritage, where people who actually pull coins that are counterfeit, that should be a red flag. Know how those coins are manufactured. What that means is if it's a cast coin, they didn't make cast coins, that should be an indication that coin is bad. If that coin is supposed to be gold and it's copper, that's probably a bad sign. There are patterns, but they're really, really rare. The chances of you having one that you found in a bag, probably not good. Know the metal coin. XRF testing machines keep getting cheaper and cheaper, but they sometimes get false testings. But again, people on YouTube, use a magnet, see if it sticks. It's no good. There's easy ways to tell. It's about handling the stuff and knowing what it's supposed to look like and how it's supposed to come. Buying certified coins. PCGS screws up. NGC screws up. We buy back coins. We have a fund that we keep to buy back coins. We've had to buy back $1 million coins. But we do it because our brand and our integrity and protecting the marketplace, it's too important not to do that. And so if you buy something in PCGS holder, an NGC holder, you know that you're going to be protected, even if it turns out to be bad. And again, buy from good people. If you buy stuff from Stacks, you know it's going to be guaranteed. If you buy stuff from Numismatics, from Steve Avner Points, from Heritage, all these companies, Sedgwick, are going to take back anything if it turns out not to be good. And so you're guaranteed by that. And again, if you get offered a deal, it's too good to be true, guess what? It probably is. All right, well, thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any. Go ahead. Hold on, if you want to wait for a few minutes, I have something special for you guys. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jay, thanks for the talk. When I think about the future of the hobby, this scares me the most. Because the technology is getting better and better. And before we used to say XRF is where it's at, we could trace minerals, trace composition to a silver, to a particular mining region, etc. But now we hear about counterfeits where, a genuine coin gets melted down, straight up planchette, and then struck with counterfeit dies. What are some of the things that you think are coming in terms of battling and then giving collectors a peace of mind?
Okay, so I'll tell you like this. The reason why the coin market exists is because there's lots of real coins. There's legitimate people who sell legitimate coins. I certify thousands of legitimate coins a day. Okay? There's a lot of people who want to be famous, and they write articles, and they write books about counterfeits, and it sells because people are scared. They want to learn to protect themselves. But guess what? This hobby is pretty safe if you stay out of certain areas, like Chinese, for instance. If you're not an expert Chinese, and you're not buying third-party certified, you're going to get burned. But as I said, there are a lot of real coins out there, and this is the exception of the rule for the most part. Again, if you're buying something off Alibaba, I guarantee you that thing is probably not going to be real. So, yes.
He mentioned XRF machine. We use an XRF machine every day on the counter for bullion and such items. Does PC use it a lot when a lot of coins coming in, or what are the percentages of?
Okay, so again, it comes down to timing and it comes down to technology. XRF we thought might be a silver bullet, and as I said before, there is no silver bullet to kill counterfeits. It's a tool. And we found that the XRF is so inconsistent where I could take one coin and I could scan it in 5 different areas and get 5 different results. And when it comes to stuff in, say, Mexico, like a portrait dollar, we did an experiment. We scanned thousands of coins. It took days of scanning, days of compiling the information, and we found that even on the exact same date, they are wildly inconsistent because it just depended on where that silver came from, how they refined it, on and on and on. Even on Morgan dollars, it's very inconsistent on something where, US Mint made it. So, XRF, again, it's a tool. There's a certain couple of coins that you can use it for and say, yes, this is real because of the test, but it's just a tool, and its inconsistency is not helpful enough in determining any kind of authenticity factor. Yes, ma'am.
Just kind of 1.5 questions, just based on that. Like, when you say inconsistent, what kind of tolerance are you saying over like 90%?
Again, it depends on where you're scanning.
Like a
So if there's a surface contamination that gets in there, you could have like a 50% inconsistency. I mean, I'm serious. And then you scan like 4 other areas of the coin and they all come back normal. The machines also sometimes malfunction, and we have to get a technician out there to calibrate those coins and calibrate the machines so they can actually test again properly. So there's a lot of problems with those machines, and they're very expensive. And again, it's to test it, you have to pull that coin out and have someone actually do that work, and that adds on a lot of extra time and fees, you know, for us. Go ahead.
Is the magnet still viable in today's market? I mean,
It's viable for the pop metal
yeah,
crap
most
that you
of them I
find
saw
flea
listed up
markets
there
and you
had
find.
ferrous metal. in them,
Yeah. But again, if you have a strong enough magnet, you can move peace dollars. Because peace dollars, silver is a little bit magnetic.
Yeah.
And so, and again, if you take a real coin and you take a magnet and you rub it on the surface of that coin, that coin's now magnetic. Because you get enough of that stuff on there. And so people have done that kind of stuff and tried
Have
to.
they taken notice of that? I mean, altered their metal contents to be non-ferrous?
A magnet is a tool for somebody who doesn't even know how to tell if it's silver or not silver to try and find something in a flea market. And besides that, I wouldn't use that in any kind of, you know, use. And that's it's like an Italian coin that comes both magnetic and non-magnetic. That's the only time I use a magnet. Yes.
Congratulations. I know that for Sturo to be they make pretty good fakes. Is there like a very expensive coin that it's counterfeited consistently?
There's lots of very expensive coins that are counterfeited. We keep our notes on this stuff very close to our chest. As I said, if I publish everything I had, we'd be out of business.
Which one would you say is the most expensive Mexican coin that it's hard to
The one that we get the most is 1733 real.
Okay, and the
Because they made a
1732
bunch of fakes of those with like real silver, and then they dumped them in the ocean.
Oh yeah. Then 1732 also.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get a lot of that kind of stuff in every once in a while, and we have to be very careful. Go ahead.
Are there any contemporary counterfeits that you will slap? If they're really collectible, like the
If it's
Rolex ones?
there's different areas that we work on. If it's something that's been legitimized, or if it's something like a revolutionary piece or an event piece that was, you know, done as that time period, then you know there's possibilities that we would certify. But most of the time, no, for Mexican. So, all right. So 2 things. PCGS has been kind enough to sponsor a grading contest. It closes today. First prize, $200 in grading credits.
Nice.
Second prize, $100 in grading credits. If you fill out the form and turn it in to me, I'll announce the winners tonight. Secondly, attended the lecture. I have a PCGS sample set for you if you want.